What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Montana Method Podcast. One more time, as always, your host, Nelson Rodriguez Jr., host, creator, director of the Montana Method Podcast. As always, coming at you with a very special guest, Miss Gabrielle Cacciola. How you doing?
Thank you so much for having me.
Honored to have you in my space. Thank you. Yeah, I'm knee deep into the Ian Bick family.
Yes.
So, yeah,
Yes,
it's great. This place is awesome. Yes. You know, all the awesome people I've met here over the last 2 or 3 days. I'm delirious at this point. This is my 10th podcast in 3 days.
Wow, you've been working hard. Here and getting it done, right?
Getting it done, yeah. So, Gabrielle, we met under interesting circumstances. They said, you should have Gabby on your podcast. And I said, who's Gabby? And then Matt said, yeah, have her on. And I said, okay.
So here we are, right?
So here we are. Yeah, Ian's never failed me. And Matt, too. Everyone they've recommended has been a great guest. And we have a great time. And they always have a tremendous story. So I'm excited to get into it.
Yes, of course.
So how was your day? Hope the ride wasn't too bad.
No, not at all. I came from the recording studio. And
nice.
I'm
That's right. You make music.
Here. Yes, I'm a singer.
Awesome.
Yes.
How long you been singing?
My whole entire life. I grew up in a very musical family. My parents are both musicians, so I just automatically was always in the house with a very musical family. So, yeah.
Did you play instruments as a kid?
Yeah, my first instrument I ever played was the drums, and then I switched over to the piano.
Okay.
But always vocals, always singing.
The two instruments that I'll get around to eventually that really interest me are piano and guitar.
Okay, well, I could give you, I don't know too much about the guitar. I could play it by ear. I have no idea what I'm doing, but I could teach you a little bit about the piano.
Piano, okay. I know the basics. You know, I know the C, D, E, F, G and all that because I actually went to the only semester that I went to college for was actually for audio engineering. So I took a music theory class and I learned the very basics of everything.
Where'd you go?
I went to this university called the Miami International University of Art and Design in downtown Miami. It doesn't exist anymore. It just went out of business like maybe a year ago.
Wow, and they have a good music program.
They used to, when they existed. No, the school doesn't exist anymore. Okay. But yeah, and what I liked about that school is that you actually learned from people who were actually doing what you wanted. It's not like a traditional college where you have some guy teaching you a business administration degree and it's like a guy who's never owned a business in his life. That school is very hands-on and everyone they hired was in the industry. Okay,
so they're doing it. Right. Okay, so they're the proof.
Yeah,
I love that. Right.
We had a professor there named Professor Roy Droyko. He's interesting guy. He had been on the road with like the Stones and Metallica.
That's cool.
We had another guy that worked at the school. I forgot what he did at the school. He wasn't a professor, but and I forgot his name. He was one of the co-producers of at the time, Nas and Damian Marley were doing like a collaboration album. And he was one of the producers, and he worked at the school. So you were around people in the business.
Right. I love that. I love that.
It was really cool. All right. So you have you're young, you like music, your parents are into music. Tell me a little bit about how you grew up.
So I grew up I was born in the Bronx. My family had then moved to Richfield, Connecticut.
You're Italian?
Yes, I'm Italian. Very big, happy, Italian, loving family.
I have a good friend named Stephanie who's also Italian and from the Bronx.
Really?
She you guys would be best friends.
Probably.
She's good people. But okay, so you're from the Bronx, Italian.
Yes. So then when we came here, like I said, very musical family. My father's also a martial artist. So from a young age, I saw the music side and the martial artist side. And that's sort of just the way that I was raised. From going forward, that's just something that I continued on throughout my whole entire life. And even things like the music industry is not an easy one to be in.
Right.
I feel like my whole entire life, though, the thing that has really taught me the most resilience for a lot of things that I've been through in my life is the martial arts. So I'm so grateful and blessed to have had that at such a young age because I've really used that and applied that to everything that I've ever been through.
Sports typically at a young age are always good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Martial arts, especially martial arts because it teaches you resilience. And it also teaches you like being self-reliant, independent, because it's an individual sport. It's not a team sport. Right. So it teaches you totally different lessons. You know?
Especially when it's a combat sport and you're actually getting hit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you got to keep your hands up. And
yeah, when I was a kid, I was in judo. I did kickboxing for a while, but my favorite one was boxing as a kid.
Boxing.
Found boxing when I was about 12, and it was really good. Taught me.
Are you an MMA fan?
Yeah, of course. I'm the biggest. I remember the first time I ever saw MMA was on Spike TV. It was Forrest Griffin versus Stephen Bonner. It was the season finale of the first Ultimate Fighter.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I've been watching the UFC since it became first like mainstream.
Right. Do you have a favorite fighter now?
Now or ever?
Ever and then now.
Okay. My favorite fighter ever is Matt Hughes.
Okay.
He's considered before GSP,
Mm-hmm.
George St. Pierre. He was considered the most dominant welterweight of all time. And then GSP came in the picture and knocked him out and took his title. And then he had the career that he had. But Matt Hughes is my favorite fighter of all time.
Wow.
Yeah.
What about now?
Now, my favorite fighter right now in the UFC, it's a tough one because there's a lot of good ones.
Mm-hmm.
I would have to say John Jones.
John Jones.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just because he's the greatest of all
He
time.
just had a big win.
Yeah.
So.
I equate him winning the heavyweight title to like his 7th Super Bowl ring, like Tom Brady. Like what Tom Brady did when he was already the greatest of all time, but this is like, all right, I'm really the greatest.
Right.
Yeah, he's great.
Absolutely.
What about you?
I may be a little bit biased, but I was training over at Glover Teixeira's with Alex Pereira, and
He's such an animal.
yeah, they're unbelievable. And Alex's sister actually taught me everything that I know about MMA.
That's awesome.
So when I was going through a lot with my autoimmunity. I have a chronic condition called Hashimoto's that affects my thyroid gland. During that time, I saw this girl on Instagram training, and I was like, oh my gosh, she's amazing. I saw she was coming over to Danbury. I'm like, wait, that's like 20 minutes from me. And I shot her a DM. I was like, will you train me? Never thinking that she was going to answer. Like, I went and I translated the message into Portuguese. And she did answer. And she took me in as her student for about 2.5, 3 years. And from there, I was just there with some of the best fighters in the world, literally just watching and observing and having conversations with them while becoming friends with these people and really seeing that if you know any of their stories, it's not easy where they were. And to see where they are now, it's very, especially in the part of my life that I was in at the time, in such a rough patch, was such a good place and a great spot for me to be in.
I love that. So how long ago was that you kind of found her and started like getting into MMA?
So MMA was 3 years ago.
3 years ago.
Till now.
Before that, when you were a kid practicing martial arts, which one was it?
Kung Fu.
Kung Fu. That's interesting. I've never met anybody who practiced Kung Fu. That's cool.
Yeah, so a lot of weapons, not as much, no groundwork, and no contact. Like we would spar, but it wasn't like I'm actually...
Can you apply anything you learned in Kung Fu and MMA?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah?
Definitely.
Like what?
Definitely. I feel like there's a whole form, there's a whole stance, there's a whole presence that you need to have about you. Just the overall knowledge of how to throw a punch, hit with your 2 biggest knuckles. Don't hyperextend the elbow. Just the basic things that in the beginning don't feel basic. They're difficult. And sometimes breaking bad habits take years to get out of. So yeah, definitely so much. And I think even just the resilience of the training, the long hours, the endurance, that all adds up into the MMA as well.
Did you ever get any fights? Like on the street, not like a pro fight, but did you get...
Oh, on the street?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been in an unfortunate street fight. It was, I think back on it now and I'm like, oh my gosh. It was... Are you ready for the story?
Go for it. Yeah.
It was a very sad day. I was at my great uncle's funeral, and it was just my whole entire family was there. We were going to an uncle's house after like the service, and I parked my car, and a girl delivering, those edible arrangements. I'm literally gonna totally throw edible arrangements under the bus. Those they look like flowers, but they're fruits, right? She goes, delivers the package, and then I'm getting out of my car. She rolls down her window and she says, bad word, do you have a problem with me?
You
And
could
I'm
curse on
like,
here. It doesn't matter.
Are you going to get shadow banned?
No.
She goes, bitch, do you have a problem with me? And I'm like, I'm getting out of my car with my bag. I'm like, had no idea she was talking to me. So she says, why are you ignoring me? And I'm like, what is happening? So I turn my head and she jumps out of her car. And she gets in my face and I see her like with a fist like this. And I said to her, listen, I said, I don't want to hurt you, but if you throw that fist, I'm going to have to defend myself. So she throws like a haymaker, like how like the drunk girls in the bars would throw like this, like they don't know what they're doing. And I just blocked it. And I remember the cop saying to me, like, at the end, how many punches did you throw? And me being like, I don't know, maybe one. You know, I think the thing about the martial arts is once you know how to defend yourself, throwing punches and brawling is not always the goal, right? So if I know how to block, right, and I could defend the situation, after that, she came at me a second time as I'm walking away. At that point, it's so difficult because it's like, I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want to hurt somebody, but then you're coming at me a second time. Did the same thing, blocked, walking away. Now I start beating the truck, because I don't want to hit her, so I start hitting the truck. She comes chasing me again. Now my whole family runs out. Now she goes and she takes my mom's head. She sees my mom run out and she attacks my mom. And she takes my mom's head and starts jamming it against my rearview mirror.
What?
And my mom's whole entire face. From that point on, I lost it. I'm happy the cops came at that point. I'm happy they came at that point. I sort of blacked out. And that was the first strike that I threw on her. And then the cops came and they pulled me back. You know, it's difficult because, like, if I would have defended myself in the first place and actually struck back the first time, she would not have hurt my mom. And I think that's, like, the biggest thing that I regret every day is, like, seeing that my mom did get hurt. Going forward, we were in court for almost 2 years as people were saying that I was the one that started it. They were going with her statement, which her statement said that I had gone to her car, pulled her out of, that her window was down, I pulled her out of her car and just started hitting her. That's what they were going with. So it was crazy because there weren't witnesses around. There was nobody aside for, and I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but aside for a priest and an organ player who saw it happen. And they came forward and they said maybe about a year into it, 1.5 years into it, that they saw it happen. And that I didn't start it. And then right from there, everything was dropped. It got to the point like where her lawyer called me and was like, this girl is crazy. And she was threatening to come to the courthouse and like hurt my family and like trying to take my house, trying to take anything that my family had. And it was just like, what is happening? You know what I mean?
That's pretty wild.
All because I didn't strike back.
That's pretty wild. Someone's like threatening to come to the court and it's pretty crazy. Some people, they're so caught up in their own anger over something. She was probably super pissed over. So when people that react that way in life, the first thing I immediately see is them getting physically abused as a kid, getting bullied, even sexually abused. Unfortunately, it happens sometimes. I've become really empathic after prison. And I think it's just being in such a bad situation that you don't want to be the cause of someone being in that bad situation. Right. Like I went so low that I don't want to be the cause of why someone would be that low. So I've become really empathic. And that's a theory. I really honestly haven't really tried to think about why. But that's what I see now. When people freak out on me, you know, or whatever, you know, yell at me or, I get a crazy text message out of nowhere from somebody. Right. I'm just like, man, this guy, you know, it's not me.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. It's other people's. We all have trauma. We all have generational patterns or, you know, the way that we were raised. And I like, just like you said, like, don't really take anything personally, because it's probably not about you.
I have a really controversial opinion about trauma.
Mm-hmm.
People use trauma as an excuse to shit on other people whenever the fuck they want, and it's not cool at all. You have trauma, right? You have things you've dealt with, real things you've dealt with, so has everyone else. Right. What gives you the right? Oh, because you had a bad childhood, it gives you the right to shit on everybody else? Guess what? That's just going to make you be alone.
I agree.
No, everyone who cares about you is just going to abandon you. Having trauma doesn't entitle you to anything. Welcome to the real world. Everybody has trauma. Everybody's been through something crazy. It's how you deal with it that determines who ultimately you are as a person. Because until you say, all right, I have trauma just like everybody else, am I going to let this like determine my actions and just walk around like a zombie? Mm-hmm. Like I'm letting this control how I act throughout my whole life? Or am I going to say, no, you know what? I have trauma just like everybody else, and I'm going to deal with it. I'm not going to take it out on other people. So that took a lot of growth to come to that conclusion, and a lot of patience. So don't think, I wasn't born that way. Mm-hmm. I have a lot of issues with my father and things that I've dealt with on my own. But anyway, so back to you. So that gets dropped. When was it? When did that happen?
Oh my goodness, maybe 8 years ago.
Okay, a while ago. Okay.
Yes.
All right. What? How old were you?
Oh my goodness, I had to be 22.
22.
No.
Okay.
Maybe 20.
Man,
I can't do math.
Man, you look so young. I didn't think you were in your late 20s.
Was I?
I thought you were like 21.
I have to think back when this happened. Like when there's just so many things that you maybe don't want to remember. I don't think of that day.
Remember,
I don't want to know the date.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So at this point, are you still, so martial arts was always a thing in your life?
Always.
At this point, was this after high school? Like after you graduated high school, you're kind of going into college?
After I graduated high school, that had happened. Yes.
Okay, cool.
So during that time, after when this was happening, I didn't know, because my ex was there with me at the time, and we weren't on such great terms. So I didn't know if like this was a girl that from his past or anything. I was in a very abusive relationship, and so sometimes you don't know. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So that's over. Thank God, right? You move on with your life.
Yes, we moved on.
So what are you doing at this point once you moved on from, like, next phase of your life after that was over?
After that, after the fight?
Yeah.
Let's see. So I had signed to a management company for my music, and I also had signed to an independent pop label. And that was interesting, management wasn't very good. You have people who are coming up to you. Everybody wants to, at the end of the day, like musically, I'm a brand. Everybody wants to profit off of that brand or tell you who to be, how to sound. And when you're that young, the first person that's like, I want you, you're kind of like, oh, okay, without even knowing, So I had gotten into a bad deal with an independent label, and it kind of got to the point where after a year and a half of making music with them, the owner of the label had texted me and said, hey, I wish I could be the one to discover you, but we're broke. We have no money. So nobody got paid. The producers, the studio, the photo shoots, everything that we were doing, nobody got any compensation. So from there, a lot of producers and stuff that, oh, well, now there's no budget. And, then the producers start to get a little inappropriate with you. And they're like, hey, well, there's no budget. Well, how about you do a little bit of something for me? And then, we'll give you the song. We'll give you free studio time. And it's like, that's when I really, saw the industry, and I'm like, what is this? Like, what is this?
Yeah, now we're seeing with, P. Diddy and all that stuff. It's totally common. It's not a...
Totally.
Even before the whole Diddy case, you see that it's pretty. It's known that Hollywood and the media and the music business, it's very much that dark side of it, where they make women and people in general do some nasty shit to kind of move ahead. A lot of gatekeeping, a lot of that kind of stuff. It's really sad. it's unfortunate. But I think there's changes happening. You know, the things like Bill Cosby and Diddy and all these people who are getting caught and are getting thrown in federal prison. Like, I think that's the wave of change starting to slowly but surely come. And you know,
right. Nobody is, and especially like with social media now and stuff, and just like the phones and the technology.
Yeah.
I feel like the phones, like if I say something and I'm just having a conversation with my mom about like, hey, I want these slippers, like the next day they pop up on my ads, like when I'm like scrolling through Instagram, like these things I believe are listening to us. So I feel like, you know, if you're going to do something crazy or like inappropriate, there's always ways to find out, you know?
Yeah.
So
there's no escaping anything anymore. It's like everything is on the internet forever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like once something gets posted on the internet, there's no way to undo it. That's the crazy thing. Yeah, you can't escape things nowadays.
Yeah.
That's why I understand now that like I always operate like there's a camera on me because most of the time there is.
Yes.
There's cameras everywhere now. And you can't really get away with anything anymore. So, yeah, I just thought that's just how I operate with my life. Like, that clip of Diddy that came out where he's beating the crap out of, what's her name, Cassie?
It's so sad.
You're doing that in the middle of a hotel. What's wrong with you? Like, it's
Right.
stupid, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
No,
But
it's
that's just how I operate. You know, I assume I'm being watched.
Right.
And I assume that people are going to talk about what I do, you know, no matter how much in secret I want it to be, you know?
Right.
So... but yeah, so you get a taste of the music industry, unfortunately, which sucks.
Yes.
Okay. So that's like a few years ago, maybe?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I feel like from there, during that part of my life, I stopped training martial arts. That's like 4 or 5 years without training. Probably the worst time of my life. Bad relationship. I was with somebody who was an addict. There was a lot of abuse going on. And then maintaining this, I'm a new artist and I'm trying to navigate this music career with people who are just, have other maybe ulterior motives or just bad direction and advice. And, once I got out of that, I mean, these last 3 years have been really just a healing time for me. So if anybody's going through any type of rough time, and you're like, oh, I'm never going to get out of this. Like, there were days when I was like, oh, my reality's not going to change. You know what I mean? I really just thought, like, this is it, you know? And there were times where mentally I was just like, I'm done, you know? And there were a lot of thoughts of suicidal thoughts and things like that. So if anybody's feeling that way, just know that as long as you're willing to put in the work and you're surrounded by people who love and care about you, that you could do anything. You really can.
How long were you in that bad relationship for?
We were together for 5.5, 6 years.
Long time.
Yeah. So I was really locked in, and I was dedicated to really trying to change and help somebody who just didn't want it, you know, while being blamed every day for their addictions. And me being like, but you were having these problems before you had even met me. So, like, how am I the problem? But you start to almost really, really believe it when it's said over and over. Like, when people say, look at yourself in the mirror, say positive affirmations, soon, the first time you're like, oh, whatever. Second time you're like, wait, hold on. Third, and you do it every day. What you put in here is going to become your reality. So that sort of what is became of my reality for that time.
You know what I noticed in addiction? All of it is like zero acceptance of responsibility. Everything is always blaming other people. Everything is always someone else's fault. Everything is always, you know, it's never me. I'm never the problem. Someone else is always the problem. And if you notice, with that type of behavior, the common denominator in all those different situations in your life is you. So it's funny how you're the only common denominator in all those bad situations that didn't go the right way, yet you still choose to blame everybody else in your life. You know, it's ironic. The human mind is fascinating, right? The conclusions we draw and push people away. So I'm curious to think. I'm glad we're having this conversation. I'm curious to think to know like what things would you tell yourself to stay in the relationship even when there was clear proof that you shouldn't be in the relationship?
You know, when you love somebody and you see them really struggling, it's the hardest thing to be like, oh, I'm just gonna leave. I had felt so guilty and was so afraid of, oh, is he going to get hurt? Is he going to get in a car accident? Because there was always like a lot of reckless drinking and driving,
right,
or an overdose or things like that. And I think it was very hard to sleep at night if it was like, you know, if we had gotten an argument and I would leave to go stay at my parents', like it would be like, wait, hold on. Is something bad going to happen? And I never wanted to feel responsible for that. Yeah, you know, it's very, very difficult. I wish that there was something for a program, or that I had known of a program for people on the opposite ends, dealing with somebody who's struggling. And I think it really all ties back to mental health. You know, and I don't think that the mental health care system in America is great. I think that we need to do a lot more work and start talking, having the hard conversations. Because when you have hard conversations, I notice like another person on the other end may have gone through the same thing. And I think if we can just all sort of help each other and not be so like pretend. I don't want to pretend. You know what I mean? I don't want to pretend. So.
Yeah, that's a big part of what I do, like authenticity.
Right. I love that.
It's being in this business, you meet a lot of fake people. People who are trying to just do this for the clicks or the likes.
Right.
I do this because it's what I want to do. You know, the reasons behind why you do things, I think, determine your behavior. You know, so you could have the best intentions, but you know, intentions don't really matter. It's like what are you doing? You know, I think that's part of why that happened, right? Like at the end of the day, you would instead of telling yourself the reasons why maybe this won't work out, you kept telling yourself maybe the reasons why it would. You know, your intentions were there, but it just wasn't working out. Of course.
And then, you know, somebody's on the other end promising to change.
And they never do.
Yes, and they never do. And you're like, okay, I'll stay one more time and give you one more chance. And then it's just another thing after another thing. And then when you come out of it, you just find yourself even more withered down than the other person, you know. So,
did they ever get help, the other person?
You know, I think when I had left the situation, maybe, you know, they started to go into therapy and take a little bit more accountability. But it got to the point where we had conversation. I was like, drugs and alcohol or me? And they said drugs and alcohol, and I left. You know, but it took a very long time for me to get there. You know, yeah, and it's to the point where I was so broken down that I couldn't even go on. That I was like, I can't even help you anymore. You know, that it took me all this time to really build myself back up. But we're here now, so
that's what matters. Yeah.
Yes.
Did you find MMA again, like martial arts, around the time you left the relationship?
So I had found boxing then. When I had left the relationship, I started training at Champs Boxing Gym. And then from there it grew, and I was like, let me explore more. About 2 years after that, I had found MMA.
And you said you were training with like the same place as Alex Pereira. And
so I was training with later on after, you know, training there a little bit. Glover had me in the fight team with the fighters, so it was Alex and Alini, his sister, Glover. Everybody was there all the time. They're a very great community, and they really want the best for everybody there. You know, even their young fighters, Glover's very, very hands-on with everybody. It's great. It's really great.
One of the best fights I've ever seen is Glover Teixeira versus Jiri Prochazka.
Yes.
It was such a good fight. And it was so frustrating because he was winning that fight. I mean, it was close, but he was winning that fight. And then that last round when they got him in that chokehold, oh my God, no. You know? It was
we were all watching it together, and it was so difficult. But and then I just started crying. But we were so proud. We were so proud of him anyways, you know.
I mean, He's got that record.
Yes.
Oldest champion. And
Yeah, he's definitely been a huge part of my life and where I'm at now.
That's awesome.
And such a wonderful, positive, just watching him and just no matter what, just the perseverance, the relentless drive is just something. It was so incredible to be in that space.
Would you say purposely putting yourself in adversity helps you? Like obviously you're purposely putting yourself in the face of adversity when you train, right? Would you say that purposely putting yourself in that difficult situation where you're forced to improve, is it mentally, is it good for your mental health?
Absolutely. Because just when you think that you can't push anymore and you're training with some of the best strikers in the world, like Alini and Alex are like, they're some of the top strikers. There's a lot of negative that goes on in the mind constantly. Oh, I don't deserve to be here. Oh, obviously everybody's better than you. Pushing past that and coming out of that training session at the end of the day, you just feel like, I can't wait to do this again, Okay. So, yeah, definitely.
Have you seen anything kind of like temperatures rise or like anybody get angry in training? Like recently, you saw that clip of Jamal Hill like going up to Alex Pereira while he was sparring, and then they were like going at it. Have you ever seen?
Were they?
They weren't fighting, but Jamal Hill kept going up to him, and until Alex Pereira was like, "All right, throw on the gloves." He was speaking in Portuguese, so you couldn't. But he was like throwing the gloves at him, like, "Oh, let's fight right now."
I didn't see that.
You never seen anything like that in the gym?
No, Glover would never allow that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
so that probably
Glover
wasn't
holds
here in
down a
Connecticut.
tight
Yeah.
shit. No.
That probably was somewhere else then. Yeah.
Yeah.
Another gym.
Right.
Yeah, I remember that happened a few times when I was training. Guys would get heated, and then the fight would turn real.
Okay.
That happened to me twice actually. There was this guy. We were actually prepping. I used to fight on an amateur level, local level, nothing crazy.
That's awesome.
Yeah, kickboxing, and I wasn't gonna fight that specific tournament, but I was, I guess, the most experienced guy there next to our main guy who was actually gonna represent us in the tournament. So coach, when I spar, I always spar light. I don't want to hurt anybody, but it's good. I spar, and all of a sudden the coach is like, "Go hard," and I'm like, "What, bro?" I look at him, and he's like, "Go hard, go," and I'm like, "All right." So then it's the switch goes off and you start fighting for real. And it got pretty, like, we heard the bell, but we kept going. Right. And then he was like, "Yo, enough." And you get into that mode where it's not even on purpose.
Oh my gosh, the adrenaline, whole drive. It's not like you black out, but it's like, I don't know, you go somewhere else. You're not here.
I go into a dark place.
Okay.
Yeah. When I used to fight and go into fights and stuff, because we actually go in these amateur tournaments, the rounds were only 90 seconds. They weren't even like a full 3 minutes.
Okay.
And they were best out of 3. Whoever won best out of 3 rounds won. And in my fight, by the third round, I was so exhausted. I'm like, man, I need this to be over. And then the judges called it a draw, and we needed a sudden death round. So we went to fourth round, and I was like dying. I was like, I'm here wheezing. And I just, in order to survive, because it's like you're either going to get destroyed right now, like this guy's going to put you on a platter and like you're going to get knocked out, or you need to put up or shut up, So, yeah, you go to a dark place.
Yes.
Well, I specifically, I'll speak for myself. I went to a pretty dark place in those fights. You have to sometimes,
Yes.
It's, what's funny? People are scared of that nature of humanity, like the dark nature. You shouldn't be scared of it. You should use it. But use it in a positive way. Use it in a direction where it's going to benefit you and not destroy you.
Right.
I
feel like I'm using that right now to just better myself, better my career. Sometimes all of that negative, like a negative comment, like I just got on my Instagram, and then I went and I made a singing video of it, and it was just like, great, fine. But you're just fueling me, so keep on bringing it. It's okay.
100%.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah. What's one of the most difficult things you've ever done?
I think one of the most difficult things was, oh my gosh, there's a lot. I think we've already spoken about my relationship, leaving that relationship. I would say probably healing my autoimmune condition alone. It was a very dark time for me. I grew up very sick, always. And my doctors, my parents, they all knew something like wasn't correct. What is wrong with Gabrielle? She's having 4 or 5 panic attacks a day. Her face is swollen, her thyroid's swollen. What's going on? And it took a while to figure out, and for me to sort of be my own advocate and be like, I'm really not feeling good. So what's going on? Because it was affecting every aspect of my life, the chronic fatigue, the weight gain, of losing my hair, just everything. And I had to, when I would go to my doctors, they would say, nothing's wrong with you. And I'd be like, no, something's wrong. So I had pushed against the system, and I went to, started studying holistic, natural medicine, herbalism, and I had found a great doctor, and they run a blood panel, and they told me that I have an autoimmune condition, Hashimoto's. I had found that the things that they were telling me to do weren't really working too well. So I had to, I remember going to the library. I walked to the library, no car, and I stacked up like 30 books, and I'm like carrying 30 books like this on the sidewalk. I'm walking, and all the books are like falling out of my hands. But anyways, that was like the first day when I saw so much knowledge and was like, no, there's more information about what I'm going through and how to heal out there. It's not just the information that the MD doctor knows. And I learned so much from there. I changed my diet. I changed my lifestyle. Started sauna, cold plunging, red light therapy, and I put myself into remission from my condition alone. And it took a while. And there were a lot of difficult moments and feeling worse sometimes to feel better, sort of the way that the healing process goes. So, yeah, I think that's probably one of my biggest accomplishments, but one of the most difficult things that I've had to do, aside for leaving that relationship.
I have a good friend of mine. When you're in Miami, I'll connect you with her. She's put herself in remission from autoimmune.
Wow.
So, and she has a podcast. So I'll connect you guys. Yeah, I think you guys would have some things in common for sure. Yeah. Yes. She has a pretty cool story. She does like straight carnivore, like, and eats raw, like raw cheese, raw dairy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some people can handle that. I found that I can't, but yeah.
What do you eat?
So it's basically anything that you could get if you could found a farm, or like anything that you could grow or pick. So I eat a lot of fruits. I eat a lot of vegetables.
So anything that comes from nature.
Yeah. I've tried different things. I've tried all vegetarian. That flares up my condition. I've tried AIP, which is just like an animal-based diet. That flares up my condition. I found that putting too much stress on the body gives me a flare-up. Or doing too many things too extreme. So if it's like AIP and I'm cutting out all vegetables, my body's like, wait, hold on, we're not getting certain nutrients that we need. So my goal is, it took a while to figure out what makes me feel my best. I eat fish, meat, anything that's fruit, you could pick from a tree or the ground, So
it's like a paleo diet, more or less.
Yeah, no dairy and absolutely no gluten. Stay away from gluten if you have a thyroid disease. It doesn't help at all. So,
Gabby, thank you for coming on.
Thank you for
having me. This has been great. Your story's pretty cool. You have a lot of sides to you.
Yes, there's a lot.
I love that.
Thank you.
I usually wrap up by asking 3 questions. So, question number 1: what inspires you?
What inspires me? My family. My family inspires me the most. They keep me pushing.
Are you from like a very traditional Italian family, like big Italian family? I love that.
Yes.
I'm Cuban, so we have that in common.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty big, mostly big families. They stick together.
It's very loving.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, Italians and Cubans. I hopefully will marry a young, attractive, traditional Cuban woman one day, but if not, an Italian is a great substitute. Yeah. So, second question, what's next for you?
So the next thing that I'm working on is I'm in the studio recording an album right now. We're focused on putting out a single. We got a billboard going up in Times Square, which I'm really, really excited about. So that's next, just continuing my music journey and telling my story.
I love it. Story never ends. It's not done yet, right?
Never. I'm going to keep going, keep writing it.
And last question, how do you want to be remembered?
I want to be remembered by making an impact, by creating change and showing people through what I've been through that they can heal as well. I believe, my father always told me from a young kid, I believe that you're here to help people. And I never really understood why until I had gotten to the other side of the things that I've been through. So that is my main goal. I want to help inspire and help other people through what I've been through. Pain through purpose.
Yeah. Pain is purpose,
yes.
I would say.
Yes.
All right? If Absolutely. It wasn't for the dark times, you know, let me tell you a story. So I went to California this one time. We stayed in this big penthouse suite. It was a hotel across the room, across the way from the ocean. We had this super awesome breakfast. We went downstairs, right? And then we went across to the beach. And the beach was super nice. It was breezy. You know, we surfed. There was like some beautiful women there we started talking to. That's the most fucking boring story on the face of the planet. Who wants to hear that shit? Seriously, everything is good. Everything is like, oh my God, sunshine and rainbow. No, difficulty makes the story great. Yes. A hero only is a hero because he overcomes adversity and comes out the other side a better person, right? You got to face a challenge to be a hero. So without difficulty, life is meaningless. It has no juice, you know?
Absolutely.
And we don't change and become better. So how can people connect with you?
Oh, so you can find me on Instagram at Gabrielle Cacciola. Everything is the same. Spotify, Apple Music, iTunes, TikTok, everywhere. Cool.
Last thing, how do you want to be remembered?
You want me to answer that again?
Yeah. Oh, I just asked you. I'm out of it, man. I'm delirious. Hopefully
how I want to be remembered again. One more time?
No.
All right.
I'm delirious. I'm delirious.
Me too.
No,
Maybe you didn't ask that. No,
I'm pretty sure I did. You sure? Okay, so we did
3.
Yeah, we did 3. All right, I'll take your word for it. Okay, we're good.
Oh no.
Don't worry about it. I'm delirious, guys. So last podcast in 3 days. 10 podcasts I've done in 3 days.
That's amazing.
All right, guys. Another episode of the Montana Method podcast. Push it to the limit. The world is yours. If you're not chasing a dream, life's meaningless, guys. Catch you on the next one. Say goodnight to the bad guy. I'm fucking delirious. I'm so tired. Come on.
I've been out here hustling all my life. Every day we get into it. Really out here in these streets. That's day and night. Like there's nothing to it. When I was going through it, dog, I never got your call. I never asked for nothing, no. But now I want it all. I promise I'ma do it. Came from rags to riches. Rags to riches. Came from rags to riches. Rags to riches. Came from rags.